Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of That NextGen Planners podcast. It's a pleasure to have you back with us. You are joined by me, Amelia Hamilton, the head of community at NextGen Planners, my co-host, Clara Metcalf.
Hey.
And my other wonderful co-host, Taylor Beavis.
Hey.
I don't know if this delay is going to come out or not, but I'm going to mention that there's a delay.
There is a slight delay.
And if there isn't a delay in the edit, you can think, why has Amelia gone mad? She hasn't. There is a slight delay to me. Of course, he's not with us in person, very much in spirit, because he's not well. As we've said, it's going to seem like he's not well for a really long time as these come out. He's fine. Don't worry about him. He'll be right as rain by the time this comes out. But more importantly than any of us, we've got our wonderful, wonderful guest today, Elisabeth, who is the co-founder of Aila Money. Welcome to the podcast, Liz. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, our pleasure completely. And I think Taylor's going to kick things off today with a special question set to you by a previous guest.
Of course, yeah. So Liz, we always kick off our podcast with a question from our previous guest. So we had Charlotte Phillips-Lynn in, who asked, so I'll put this question to you. How long does it take for a giraffe to be sick?
I'm so grateful that you gave me a little bit of pre-warning on this one, because not only did I learn very much, because I learned that a giraffe has 4 stomachs.
No, what, like a cow? Wait, no, cow has 2.
I don't know. I think a cow might have more stomachs. I don't know.
Okay, let's ignore the cow.
But it takes them 2 days to get sick.
No.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah.
Stop.
The amount of Google search results, like there's not one page on this, but there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it has the little dot, so it just keeps on going. So there has been a lot of research on this. I also found out the causes. This is in my 30-second research that I did when I got asked this question. The most common causes are dehydration, which surprised me somewhat because I was like, okay. Obviously eating something that it's sort of gone bad or not wanting to eat. Eating too much, which all of this seems very much like why we might also sometimes, sorry. Lowering the tone right there. And then other health issues. So there you go.
I think you've nailed it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is not...
I would hate to think... Oh, sorry.
Go on, Taylor.
I keep interrupting you. I was just going to say, I would hate to think how big I would be if I had 4 stomachs.
Yeah.
That's quite worrying. I was going to throw it over to Clara to kick us off with kind of our first question for you, Liz, if that's okay with you, Clara.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've already learned that Liz is really good at researching.
Look at that. I've never seen such speedy, accurate research. Put that on the CV. Blimey, yeah.
So on from giraffes.
I sent you the link. So you're very welcome to share it in some of the notes where I got the information.
I will do, 100%.
So let's take your research from giraffes to elephants, and specifically, elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Women. And
I was so wondering where you were going with that segue. Okay, go for it. Yeah.
Let's not beat around the bush. Women do not find financial services as accessible as men. Where have we gone wrong, Liz? Try and explain to us a little bit about maybe the history of where this could have started. And you've done a lot in this, so I'm just going to let you roll with that.
Yeah, so it might be worth just really quickly giving you some highlights, sort of stats, and then explaining why I care about this. I think the gender wealth gap is set to last for the next 7 generations, right? So you have to say great before you get to say granddaughter. So we're looking at, almost another 170-ish years. So we're looking at the year 2200. If nothing changes, that's when the gender wealth gap is set to close. And there's certain sort of stats that underpin this. I think financial literacy is a great one. Less than 50% of women are able to pass a basic financial literacy test. 74% of women do not feel empowered to start investing, and as a result stand to lose up to £800,000 throughout their career. So we're not even talking their life. We're talking like start of career in your mid-20s into whatever your mid-60s. And all of these stats, like, there's pension gaps, there's all of this. They are what make up the gender wealth gap. why do I care about this? Well, I care about it because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it with my friends. I started in the industry. I started in life and pensions. And I then moved into private banking when I was a bit older. And I saw just how unequal men and women were being treated, especially in private banking. And for me, that was just not okay. That was honestly not okay. I saw it amongst my friends in a somewhat different way, whereby they were coming and asking questions like, what should I be doing? Not here's what I'm doing, right? So there was very much this hesitancy of, I don't know how to get started. I don't know how I should tackle this. Whereas the guys seem to be like, oh, you know what? I've invested in this and I'm doing this and my pension's here. And it was just a very different conversation. And so that's where my personal interest came from. And obviously the macro picture, as I've outlined, is pretty big. And it is a big elephant in the room because, hey, 50% of the population are women. And that's not going to change anytime soon. And we need to do something about that wealth gap.
Absolutely. And it seems so, maybe strange is not the right word, but like frustrating and contrasting to so much of the research that's gone into how women are going to hold more of the wealth, how, you know, we're transitioning into this time where women are really, you know, being able to be in a position to make big financial decisions, yet we're brought up against this fact that they don't have the ability or the understanding of like what to do with it, how to manage it, how to from the beginning start about learning, you know, where should I put my money? How should I be managing it? What options do I have? What do I want to achieve with my money? And that's not in any conversation. And like even like I've noticed it from, I think probably from university onwards, that even when there was like a big crypto thing, it was not that it's the right thing to do to invest in crypto, but you know, that's what a lot of the boys were talking about. It's like, I've invested in this crypto thing and that crypto thing. And not that that's anyone's advice to anybody to go and invest in crypto, but just the awareness of that as a thing, and that's as something you can do, and that's something that's open to us. So yeah, I think it makes me feel, I would have assumed it's not 7 generations before that evens out. When you look at the transfer of wealth currently, the two things don't seem to match up.
Yeah, the transfer of wealth, more women are being educated at university, more women are accumulating assets, we're getting into higher paid jobs. Like there's so many great trends. And by no means am I saying we're there, not with the pay gap, not with any of that.
Yeah.
But there's the pay gap is one thing. The problem that happens when you have women accumulating more assets and all they're doing is keeping it in a savings account or even in a current account.
Yeah.
Is that they're just not making their money work for them. And there's so many components, right? So we could touch on so many. I think you've talked about just the taboo of talking about it, right? So studies have shown, and these are somewhat more US based than Europe and UK based, that in families, parents are more likely to talk to their sons than they are to their daughters about money, right? Society still sees women as looking after what we might call small money. So the budget and, everything up to buying a car, essentially, right? Then the price tag becomes too big, and then it becomes a big money decision, and it sort of transfers to the man. And this is just part of the rhetoric that I guess we have in the social surroundings that we've lived in, that it is just such a taboo for women to talk about money.
It's a cultural hangover, isn't it, really? And the British society is probably somewhat worse than Europe and America in that.
What, money just generally? Talking about money is
taboo, full stop, in the UK, really, and it still is. I mean, you think about your parents, they're not as comfortable as talking about money as we are, but our grandparents, never talk about money. My mum said that she was never allowed to see a single bill when she was growing up. And I remember when I was a kid, her once showing me a bill at a restaurant, and it was almost like it was a dirty little secret, like, shh, don't tell your father. And it's so funny how that we've got not just this, women are now in higher paid jobs, but we still have this cultural hangover if we don't talk about money, and women particularly don't talk about money because it's seen as, I guess, aggressive or something, because it's not a very feminine topic to discuss.
Quote, unquote. Yeah. Taylor, you look like you wanted to say something on the back of what Liz was saying there.
No, well, it was more of an observation. Like, as a financial planner myself, I've had so many experiences where I'll go to a traditional setup with a husband and a wife, and the wife will almost sit back from the meeting. So I consciously try at my hardest to, if maybe it's not today that she wants to get fully involved because of certain hang-ups, or she doesn't feel this is the right time, or it's not her thing, it's the husband. I really try consciously to bring both in and ask questions to both. And I've had some really lovely experiences where over time that dynamic changes and they're both really involved in the planning, which is great. But I wanted to, Liz, ask you if there's any sort of on that topic, any research or stats around, do women generally tend to find that they work better with female advisors? Is the issue that our industry has too few female advisors, or actually is that not a thing?
So the industry has too few female advisors. I think there's a stat in the UK which is 84% of advisors are men.
Yeah.
And I believe there's another one which is there are more male advisors, white male advisors over the age of 60 than there are women in the entirety. So that's one. So yes, there is a bit of relatable advice, and I certainly have anecdotal evidence of women advisors being in a better place to understand the life circumstances of some of their female clients. So a great example is a woman who was a single mum, or she was going to be a single mum, and she was thinking about, should I get a bigger place? Right. So this was a discussion that she was having with her banker around mortgages, et cetera, all of this kind of good stuff. And the male banker did all the maths and explained and was like, yeah, you can totally get a bigger place. Don't worry. You can, leverage to the max and off you go. Great. And she was smart enough to go, great, the numbers work, but let me have a conversation with a female just to sense check this. And this woman said, just so you know, you are having a child. You have no idea what comet is about to hit your life, right? You have no idea whether you're going to want to keep working in the high-powered job that pays you as much as it currently does, right? And you will need that pay in order to mortgage up to the point where you want to have that bigger place. You have no idea whether you want that. You have no idea what your costs are going to be because, you're a single mom. You can't calculate how many babysitters you're going to need.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to stay in this job. So all of these sort of circumstances, the guy just hadn't faced them, whereas the woman had. And so anecdotally, that's a great example. That being said, there has been a great stat that there was a great piece of research that was done that said, when you are in an advisor conversation, the eye contact, if it's with a couple, of the advisor, regardless of whether he is a he or a she, is more directed towards the man. So it really doesn't matter. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I totally believe that. And because it's so much unconscious bias. And there's so many times that I find myself doing similar things in those situations. You have to be like, what? Why are you doing that? Why have you just decided that this is the person who's the authority in this, or who automatically should know more, or like in all sorts of different situations. And it shows how pervasive that is. So what kind of responsibility do you think we have as people in this space to change that narrative, or to try and push education out there? What do you think our role should be? What kind of obligation do we have?
So I think you've to an extent hit the nail on the head when it comes to the education piece. I think education is half the battle, because we talk about women not having the confidence to get started. And a lot of that has to do with, if I don't know what is happening to my money, I'm not going to do anything with it. Like, if I don't understand the mechanics of how investing works, even at the most basic level, I'm probably not going to do it. Right? It's the same way that if you if you asked me to, I don't know, travel to or drive a car, and I'd never sat in a car, I would probably also go, you know what, probably want some lessons before I actually get started and commit to driving whatever place, right? So that's definitely one piece. I don't think education is everything, because there's then certain components which we've sort of picked on, which still need to be tackled. And that is having a conversation with the person where they are, right? Giving them that plan and that guidance that fits their life and understands their circumstances. And I think that's the responsibility, and speaking to people in a language that they understand and checking in to go, have I broken this down without being patronizing, in a way that you're comfortable, right? So it's a lot of trust building. It's a lot of relationship building as you go into it. So that education piece is one. And then I actually think for women, I mean, we are super time poor, because we often not only have the work, but we do the brunt of the work at home. So we probably need in some ways, the permission, but from either a partner or a society to take the time to manage our finances. Because I hate to say this, but unless you literally outsource all of it, it does take time. It takes time to check your account. It takes time to fill in whatever forms. It takes time to review your risk profile. But then allowing yourself that time and creating the right kind of mechanisms. And that's exactly the sort of thing that we're trying to do with Aila, right? So combine that education piece, combine that sort of reminder. Can you track? Can you see your progress? And then provide the guidance either through the AI, or if then a human is needed, through the right kind of humans, through a network of people that women can turn to.
Yeah. Can I ask? I mean, we've had such amazing questions and answers already. We haven't even touched on your app.
Yeah.
Can you give us a kind of an overview, a summary of what it is you're trying to do?
Absolutely. So we talked a lot about the gender wealth gap, and I think my co-founder and I, we got to a place where we did a bunch of research with obviously at the macro level, but also with women. And we found that there were 3 key issues. Number 1 was very few women have a financial plan. It's about 1 in 3, right? Which is not a lot. And without a plan, how do you know where you want to get to, and therefore what you need to do, right? So this is also to some extent why we liken ourselves to a personal trainer, because we say you need to understand where you are, you need to calculate where you want to get to, and only then can you actually chart the path from one to the other, right? So that was one component, the planning. The second is then the education piece. So we use the information that women give us about their current assets, about their dreams, and then we give them bite-sized education that is relevant to their goals, their dreams, and their current situation to get them there. Specifically focused around budgeting, saving, and investing. Because again, that leap into investing, that I need to move from having it in a current account, having it in a savings account, to investing, is the one that women most struggle with. And then the third piece is the ongoing guidance. And Aila does that through, like I said, both an AI, which only provides education and guidance, and then a network of advisors that are somewhat more female focused, as in female in nature, because we do believe there is something about bringing those 16% of female advisors to the women that are seeking that help. So that's what Aila is in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's so exciting, and we're going to dive into it so much more. But first, we're going to take just a quick break. So we'll be back with you in just a second. Hello, everyone. I hope you are enjoying this current episode of that NextGen Planners podcast. In this short break, I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind you of a few things that we've got going on at NextGen Planners. Firstly, we have our brilliant Elements 2025 conference tickets now available. They sell out pretty fast, so you can go online, you can find out loads more information about our fantastic annual conference that happens every year. It's always so much fun, so we'd love to have you there, so make sure you secure your place now. And also I'd like to mention business membership, which is a really exciting new section of our community that we've got for businesses who want to take their business to the next level. So do make sure you check out that on the website, along with loads of other things about our brilliant community.
Welcome back. We're joined by Liz from Aila Money. And before the break, we were just talking about your new app. So my first question to you, Liz, is do you think with the rise of all of these robo-advice apps that they're making financial advice more accessible?
So financial advice, no. To some extent, financial education, yes. If we talk about robo-advisors specifically, I'm going to sound a little bit disparaging. I actually love robo-advisors. I think they're great. But you almost have to be comfortable and confident and understand what's going on in order to put your money there. So some of them are missing the trick before. Does that make sense? They've made investing a lot easier and they've made investing a lot more accessible. But the people that go there are the people who've probably made the choice to say, I get it. I know I need to do this and I know how it works. So off I go. I'm just going to make it easy for myself.
So the barrier itself hasn't actually been removed.
Yeah. So I think the people who, there's this moment of there's the people who seek advice, which is different to the people who invest, which is different from, so I think they've lowered certain barriers and I think they're great because they do make life a lot easier. And I certainly have some of my money in a robo-advisor. However, I don't think they've tackled the financial advice or the financial guidance piece. I do think there's more and more technology out there that is looking at this. I also think it's very interesting that the regulators at the moment are looking at that line between guidance and advice. Because as not only open banking, open finance, but also just the rise of AI and data and everything that we can do with that comes, which I hate to say, but it's sort of inevitable. It's already on us. That line will get more and I don't want to say more blurred. That's wrong. But that line does need to shift because the other big societal thing that is happening is more and more states like the one in the UK, but this is not just the UK, this is everywhere, cannot afford to take care of their people without their people to some extent taking care of them, right? So I'll use an example from the state pension system in Germany, which is actually where I come from. When the state pension system was set up there, which is, God knows, we're talking late 1800s or something under Bismarck, there was 8 working adults for 1 retired person, right? So the ratio 8-1. And when you were retired, you sort of didn't live for that long, right? Life expectancy wasn't where it was today. Now in Germany, you have 1.5 working person for every 1 retired person. Now, I don't think Germany's that far off from many other Western European countries. There's an aging demographic, fertility's gone down, people are living longer, lots of dynamics have changed in the last 100, 150 years, which mean that the state just can't take care of its people in the same way, unless we raise taxes to some sort of extortionate level, right?
When you say it like that, when you say it like that, that's so alarming, really, and you see why the state must be struggling to provide for.
Yeah, and I think it's the problem is that a big part of the problem for all of this is even when I explain it in an 8-1 ratio and a 1.5, it assumes that you understand how a tax system works and how a state pension system works, which actually they're pretty complicated systems, right? And we don't explain any of that to the kids or even the adults because we just, as an adult, we just sort of expect for somebody to provide for us. Yeah. And I think that's a big shift that's happening. And it's an even bigger shift for women because it's, women have even previously in, again, many places been dependent on either the state or a partner, their husband, right? Up until not long ago, we're talking, a couple of, not even 100 years, I think, women essentially were not allowed to own property in the UK.
Yeah.
Right? Let alone take credit, let alone open their own bank account.
Yeah.
And house husband is a new thing. It's not something that people really used a while back. So, single income households were much more common. And now most people feel they can't afford to have a single.
It seems wild for now, so for someone to think that on just a regular salary, like whatever the average salary is in the UK, that you could have a house, a car, kids, you could go on holiday, you could do all, like, that doesn't happen anymore, let alone save and invest and make sure that you've got a pension there ready and waiting for when you want to retire. It is scary because the whole landscape has shifted, and I think the narrative and the lessons that we're taught, as you said, haven't. And there's nothing in school which is going, okay, there is no safety net necessarily now. You have to create one. You have to make sure that you're thinking ahead. And it seems so far off, doesn't it? It seems, well, that's future me's problem. I'll figure it out. I'll do this. I'll do that. And it's really scary when I don't know about you guys, but you talk to some of your friends and you're like, what do you mean you don't have a pension? Or what do you mean?
How many times do you need to go to Bali?
Yeah.
Come on.
or like, but even just going, it's working out, but what are your priorities? And, if they're in a different place, that's fine. But if it's a conscious decision, that's one thing, rather than, burying your head in the sand and being like, I'll figure it out later. It's,
But the problem is, it's all the things we tell ourselves, and like culturally we're being told like the state will provide. How many times have you heard that in life? But the state won't provide. I mean, the state pension is enough to provide a basic standard of living.
Not even really, yeah.
And it's like
£220.
Yeah, and it's like defined. It used to be defined benefit. You used to get pensions that were defined benefit. You received a benefit. Someone was giving you something. Whereas now it's defined contribution. You are responsible for contributing to a pension. Yet we're not really telling people that. We're not spelling it out for people that no, it is on you now. The onus is on you to provide for yourself. We don't live in a world where you will get looked after.
Yeah, and I think that's why to an extent, why we've started Aila. And one of the things, like I said, we get people to actually calculate the cost of their life goals, right? And we go through all of the things, Amelia, that you said, I want to go to Bali and I want to have 2 kids and send them to private school, send them to higher education, go on holiday with them regularly, save for retirement, what kind of lifestyle, etc. And then we put a number on it. Is it a perfect number? Of course, it's not a perfect number because, things will shift between now and whenever you retire, but at least it's a number. And very often it's a big, scary number. And so it's that, to some extent, it's a bit of a wake up call is what we found for the users to go, oh, bugger, I didn't realize this. This is a bit slap in the face. And it spurs the action. So we take a lot of time also then breaking that down and making sure that people are comfortable and not overwhelmed, because the fear that we have is that big number is then even more ostrich.
Yes.
Right? So we really sort of go, right, things are gonna, but yeah. So but we think it's so important to have that plan, to know that number, because without it's like you arrive at the airport and you don't know, you sort of hope that your ticket's going to take you to, I don't know, Beijing. And ultimately the only place you can fly to because you haven't saved enough is Berlin.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's the whole, ignorance is bliss, but knowledge is power kind of thing, isn't it? That you can live and you can spend and you'll be fine and you'll have a nice time. You don't need to worry about it. But actually, if you can see that having that understanding and making yourself aware of those things, you have so much autonomy over what you do, how you're managing it. Yeah. It especially, I think, for women, is incredibly empowering to be able to be like, I can do that. I can manage this. I can, I feel, at least personally, I'm
in
like
the driving seat.
Yeah, like look at me go. Like I and to be able to like share that with friends as well, to be able to like, well, if you just do this, then that will be good. And then but yeah, I feel like obviously that's what something like Aila Money is invaluable for, because you don't rely on just someone sitting there and teaching you things. You go on something like that and have a look for yourself. Like, don't listen to me. Go and have a explore about what your life might look like.
That's the point. Your life, right? Not the standard life, as in the one that you're supposed to lead, but the one that you imagine. the one that you want, the one that you're dreaming of, because that's also ultimately a motivator. Because if you don't have a why, you're not going to do anything.
I was just going to say it's funny, isn't it? Because as advisors, when we sit down with clients, I don't know, Clara, about you, but do you always get the question of how much should someone have in a pension? Like, it depends on what you're trying to achieve in your life, and then there's a bigger conversation. I was going to just pivot the conversation a little bit to ask you if you think that Aila Money is complementary, or apps like Aila Money and AI, are they complementary to the advice process, or do you think that advisors might see them as a threat?
I hope that they see them as complementary. And why do I say that? I say that for multiple reasons. One, the threshold in terms of almost like the confidence and getting over yourself, and also the cost to go to an advisor, is often something that people, like, there's so many myths around going to see an advisor that there almost needs to be an entry point. And that entry point, we believe at Aila, is knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So understanding that you, first of all, might need an advisor, and that it's okay to have an advisor or a planner. Right? The other thing is, as much as an advisor really tries to personalize and be with their client all the time, they can't be. Right? You cannot be in your client's pocket all the time. Whereas what Aila does is, the client sets reminders, right? The user sets reminders like, I need to check my pension. I need to redo my risk profile. I need to change my beneficiary on my pension, or I need to review them. Like, so the small stuff, right? The stuff that you might do, but actually they're empowered to do it, and they're being reminded of it on a regular basis. Also, you need to contribute whatever, £100 so that you can actually go on that trip to Bali, or the £1,000 or whatever, so you can make your pension work, whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I mean, as a financial planner, I often find that the I guess the most frustrating point for me when I'm working with a client is that I really want to help them achieve what to get the most out of life, and I really want to make them live a happier life. The problem is, when somebody comes in, they often don't know what they want, and so you spend a lot of time coaching or trying to tease out of somebody what it is that they really want, not what society's told them that they need. Like, I need a pension. Okay, you need a pension for what? What is this pension meant to be used for? And sometimes you just want to kind of spend hours sitting and talking through them and trying to do that educational bit. But actually, we don't have the time or capacity for that. And we also cost a fair bit to come and see. So actually, an app like yours is something super complementary, because it's that education, it's that getting people to really sit and think and give them a way to actually kind of work it out at their own pace, so that when they do come to a financial planner, they've already kind of thought about that a little bit, and it's just makes our lives a lot easier getting the most out of the financial planning session with them. So I personally don't see it as a threat, but
and that's so great to hear, because we do have the network, the panel of advisors that we refer clients to. And what we find is that there almost needs to be a bit of a journey that they go on in order to reach the point where they go, oh yeah, I probably do need somebody, and it's okay that I do. Right? Because the others probably come to you directly. It's almost that this is opening a different market.
Yeah.
Because it's opening a market that isn't going to come directly to the financial planners or to the advisors, partly because they might not have the assets. That's the other reason, right? So we look at an audience that we're agnostic of the amount of money that somebody has. So we help them plan, etc. So we don't have any minimum requirements. But often, if we're able to grow with a client or with a user, then there comes a point later in their life where it's like, and now you probably need to see somebody, because now you have a situation where actually, it's worth talking to a human.
Yeah, and that's what's more missing, isn't it? Like, being able to service people at that point, which we talk about closing the wealth gap. We talk about, financial education and being enabling people to get involved in this world that perhaps was not accessible to them before. And there's a jump to be made between, the start and the point that you get to, where you get to work with someone who you're going to be profitable for, because otherwise, people need to run a business. So to be able to have something that works in that interim space.
It's not about profitability, is it? It's about value. If you go to a financial planner and say, I need X, Y, and Z, can you advise me on those products? You want to know you're getting value for money. Now, if you don't really know what you want ultimately out of that, how are you knowing if you're going to be getting the ultimate value for money from that relationship? I don't know. Would you say the same, Taylor? It's that actually having that education, if anything, helps inform those clients that you're working with to understand what they really will get by working with you, that kind of, what can I do for you? You've come to me with this. I know exactly what I want, rather than, I don't know, do you know where I'm going with this? I'm not explaining this very well.
Well, I know you're explaining it perfectly. I think that for me, there's quite a few clients that I come across where I'm just like, I really want to be able to do the whole process for you, but I can't make enough money by doing that. And I'm running a business and I have compliance costs and X, Y, and Z. But something like Aila Money is kind of where they need to go, right? So, I absolutely agree.
Definitely. And so looking forward then, there's obviously the landscape in terms of tech and AI and what you're able to do is changing all the time, and for the better, one would argue, and in the scary way, other people would argue too. What would you like the outcome to be? Like, where would you like something like Aila Money to get to? What's the ultimate goal with what you're doing and what you're working towards?
I mean, it goes back to what we were talking about right at the beginning. It's helping close the gender wealth gap, right? And that looks like women knowing more about their finances, having a plan, being able to pass basic literacy tests, financial literacy tests, but also starting to save and invest in a way that actually helps them achieve their goals. And the great thing is we ran a test version, which Amelia, I think you tried last year.
Yeah.
What we found is that even on our, the first iteration, which was, really rough and ready, if you want, we had the average user starting to invest £1,500 off the back of it. These aren't huge amounts, but they are starting. And 90% of them told us that they were more confident investing, right? They felt more confident about their financial knowledge, and especially around investing. That's the sort of stuff when it's not just the confidence and the emotional side, but when it's translating into action, that's what we want to achieve ultimately.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that is a lovely place to kind of round this discussion off. But before we let you go, we, of course, need to ask you for a question for our next guest. So what would you like to put to our next guest on the podcast?
So I would like them to tell me what sandwich topping they would like to be if they had to pick one, and then also give you a reason why they chose whatever topping they chose.
Amazing. I thought you were going to say what's their favorite one, but no, what are you? Now I'm thinking, what?
No. This is like a, who do you identify as?
Yeah.
Existential sandwich question.
I love it.
Absolutely.
Do you have a thought of what one you would be?
Do you know what? We do this every Monday at work. It's a really stupid question. Describe how you're feeling as a thing today. We haven't had the sandwich topping yet, but
perfect. You can bring that in next week then.
What would be a sandwich topping? I want to say egg and cress, but I'm really not sure why. Just to feel a bit mushy.
You feel mushy? I feel like I'm bacon, but I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why. Anyway, we'll leave everybody. Oh, God, Taylor, go on. What's yours?
No. I was just going to say I think I'm cheese and pickle, but I don't know why the cheese is grated in my head. I have no idea why.
Well, we have clear visions. Liz, go on. Before we go, what do you have one that comes to mind for you, or not?
So I think I'd be just a standard topping, and it would be amongst other things, and it would be a pickled beetroot.
Ooh,
because nice. I think it's a bit of a, people either love it or hate it, but if they do, whatever it is, it leaves a mark. Like,
yes,
you don't forget.
Very true.
For days.
Oh, what an excellent answer to the question. All of us are, I think I'm this, maybe not. She's there, ready with it. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Liz. And thank you so much to Clara and Taylor. Thank you for being wonderful co-hosts. Thank you for all of you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the NextGen Planners podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find all of our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website. Also, there is where you can find even more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help to grow the podcast.